Are you Lucy or Ethel?
Ethel.
Mm-hmm. And I am definitely Lucy.
I would be the Ethel.
That works out very well.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our podcast, Wandering Works for Us. We are Shelley and Beth, a married couple living in Portugal and traveling the world. These are our stories. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our podcast. Did you miss us?
I'm sure they did.
Maybe they did. It's a possibility. I'm Shelley.
And I'm Beth.
And we're Wandering Works for Us. And today we're taking you on a journey. A sensuous journey down the Douro River.
I'm not sure it's sensuous, but
Port
it
be
is
very sensuous.
It certainly includes a lot of wine.
Yay, wine! One of our favorite things.
We're going to talk about two things. We're dividing them so that it's not confusing. One is a Douro tour, a tour on the Douro River, if you will, area where you can visit the vineyards themselves.
I would say a Douro Valley tour.
Oh, thank you. Yes, that's better. And then the second part, we will actually talk about some of the port wine houses that are down in Porto on the Gaia side,
yes,
and how you can do those tours.
Yes, because when you come to Portugal and you're a wine drinker, you should definitely try the port.
And you should definitely go to Porto.
Yes.
Yeah.
Either one of those.
Yeah, yes.
And or both. Yes.
Yeah. So, let's kick it off with the tours that we did. We've done two different tours. Well, it was the same tour, really, but it had differences because it was with two different operators.
Yes. So we chose our tour from Viator, which of course is a very popular tour app, I guess you would call it.
Yes.
That will book you through a private company for any sort of tour. And they've got all kinds of choices for you to take when you're in the Douro Valley.
Well, all over the world, but yes.
Well, yes, but we're talking about the Douro Valley. So in this particular tour, we've chosen the same tour twice because we liked it the first time and we wanted our friend Julie to come. Hey, Julie.
Hey, Julie.
To come and experience it also. But we noticed something very interesting about taking the same tour twice. It's not really the same tour twice.
Right, because it was a different operator. And we think that it comes down to, no matter what operating company you get to do these tours, it really does depend on your guide.
Yes, the guide makes it.
Yes. And our guide was incredible the second time. Was very good the first time.
Yes.
But was incredible the second. So the Douro Valley is definitely worth doing. It is actually a UNESCO
World Heritage
Site. Very good there, dear. We are, as usual, having our gin and tonics while we do this.
About halfway through this.
Yeah, you can hear our ice clinking as we go on. But we did the one where it takes all day because we were staying in Porto. So
the majority of these tours come out of Porto. But if you decide you're going to be in the Douro Valley and you want to do one, they will pick you up there.
Yes, you can do that. But in our case, both times, we were already in Porto, and they picked us up in Porto in a van. Our tour group was limited, was it 8?
8.
To
yes.
8. And I believe we had 8 the first time, and we had 7? 6 the second time.
Yeah, because that little van can get a little crowded with 8 people.
Yeah,
shoved in.
But it's
there.
still okay.
But 6 wasn't bad at all.
No. And you meet people, and you don't have to, stay joined at the hip with them if you don't want to. But if you enjoy meeting people, you can also talk to them a lot. So they pick you up, and then it takes, an hour and a half?
About an hour and a half to get to the Douro Valley, into Pinhão.
Yeah,
That's
Pinhão.
usually where they take you.
Yeah. And on the first one, they stopped about, halfway maybe, and we had a cafe or most of our listeners would know it as an espresso, and, got to go to the bathroom, that kind of thing. The second time we went all the way and stopped in a really great little cafe in Pinhao and had a pastry and a cafe and got to go to the bathroom and all of that.
They snack you up before they give you the wine.
Yeah. So
they want to make sure that you're going to be all right.
That works out really well. And generally on these tours, they pick you up, you stop for a snack, you go to 2 different vineyards, you do a boat ride on the Douro Valley, and also you do lunch.
Yes.
And then they return you in the van about 5 or 5:30. So it's an all-day event, and we think it is a wonderful, wonderful way to spend a day when you are up in that area.
Yes. Because not only do you spend the day drinking wine, which is our favorite thing to do. No. But the scenery up there is amazing.
It is.
And the Douro Valley is just beautiful. And we've been 2 different times. We've been in August, and it was god-awful hot, but they were getting ready to harvest the grapes. So you got to see the grapes on the vines.
Yeah, that was fun.
And then we were there in March, and there's no leaves on the vines yet.
Yes. And that was really interesting to see it like that, too.
Yes.
And I think we can say both times it was equally
It was
beautiful.
so beautiful up there.
In the Douro Valley, as most valleys, the big tall hills slope down toward the river and meet the river, and everything is terraced.
Because it's pretty steep, yes.
Yeah, it's pretty steep, and so it's all terraced for the vines, and it is just so beautiful looking out on it. And I believe we will have pictures of that in the blog that goes along with this.
There are a couple pictures, yes.
Yeah,
But check our social media. That's where you'll see most of the pictures.
that's true, because I am a picture-taking fool. And then, so you go to a vineyard and you get a tour. It's already pre-set up. You don't have to pay any extra fees. It's all included in the fee that you paid to, in our case, Viator or whoever you're doing it through. And you get a tour. You hear all about how it's made, how it's then taken down to age in Porto, because that is the only way you can actually call this wine port, is if it aged in Porto. And then you get to taste after that. And when you're doing the tasting, they usually provide you some snacks to go with it. At a lot of these vineyards, you also get to taste olive oil.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because often they grow grapes and olives at the same time.
Yeah, a lot of times he said the olive trees divided the vineyards sometimes.
Yeah.
Or divided property in ways. That's what they put
Yeah.
up there. And you get to fight over who has the olives. But anyway.
In the old days, and still sometimes this exists in some of the vineyards, there are rose bushes planted along the row with the vines. And those are there because if a pest or a fungus or something like that is going to attack the vines, they actually attack the roses first. So they keep an eye on the roses, and if something's happening, they know to eradicate it and get rid of it immediately before it hits the vines.
I forgot about that.
Which I think is really interesting. Now, our guide who was telling us this said, some of our oldest fields, still have that, and we use them. She said, but our newer fields that we've planted, we actually have, high-tech Wi-Fi kind of equipment that measures everything and tells them way ahead of when they might even attack the roses. So it's really interesting to see some of those old ways when you go up in the valley.
It is. So each tour gives you 2 vineyards that you go to. And every time we've done this tour twice, and we haven't been to the same vineyard once. Right?
Haven't been to the same vineyard twice.
We haven't been to the same vineyard twice.
We've been to 4 vineyards, I think is what you're trying to say.
I'm trying to say, yes.
Yes.
4 vineyards.
And usually on these tours, they try to give you a vineyard that is a sort of larger, company-owned kind of operation. And then the other one is usually more of a smaller, family-owned kind of operation. Yes. So you get to see both sides.
And a lot of these places also offer nights to stay. So they have little rooms that you can stay in. During harvest time, you can participate in the harvest in some ways. They'll do the foot stomping of the grapes.
And yes, just like Lucy and Ethel.
Yes.
You can stomp grapes. It's not always done that way in the larger vineyards, but it is still a very common practice to stomp the grapes for the port.
Yeah.
Or table wines, not just port.
Not just port, but table wines too.
But in the Douro Valley.
And I learned, because I was like, this would be a really cool thing for us to do. Let's go stomp grapes. But you're in that pit for like 8 hours, apparently.
I'm sure you get to take a break.
I would hope so, but you would make a mess coming out of it because you're covered, in grape goo.
I'm sure that they don't, it's not like a death march.
Yeah, but the first part of it is like they're marching back and forth, facing each other. And then they kind of do dances. And like the first 4 hours, it's very straightforward. And then the second 4 hours, it's a party.
Yeah.
Which that's the part I would enjoy, but I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to stomp
I'm
grapes
sure
for 8
they
hours.
rotate people.
Yeah.
I mean,
Maybe,
because,
I hope so.
As a tourist doing it, you're paying them to do it. So I'm sure it's not a death march. But one of the vineyards that we just went to had a lot of pictures of people actually stomping the grapes. And one of these days, we're going to do that.
It did look like
that
fun.
would be big fun.
I think it would.
Yeah. Are you Lucy or Ethel?
Ethel.
Mm-hmm. And I am definitely Lucy.
I would be the Ethel.
That works out very well. Usually you get to go to a vineyard and then you have a lunch.
Oh, and the lunch is fantastic.
Yeah, it's both times, and I guess usually, and on other tours too, it is in a traditional Portuguese restaurant of some kind.
With traditional Portuguese food.
Yeah, and the first time we had, was that the lamb?
It was the lamb. That was so good.
Oh, it was so good. And again, this is included in your price, and all the wine you can drink like you need more.
That's what gets us into trouble.
Yeah,
it's lunchtime.
It's really good that someone else is driving. That is one of the best parts about doing these tours, is that someone else is driving. You do not have to worry about how much you drink or who's going to be the designated driver or whatever. Everybody can participate. And in our opinion, it's well worth the money to do it. The second lunch we had, the one that we just did with Julie, was at a restaurant on top of a hill, big hill. We went straight up for a long time to get there, and it had an incredible view of the valley.
Yes.
It was traditional Portuguese food. We had fish. What kind was it?
We had sea bream.
We had sea bream.
Yeah.
And the owner of the restaurant and the lovely man who served us and talked to us actually makes his own wine. And so we were drinking his wine while we were having lunch.
So we drank his wine, and then we drank his little liqueur that he made that tasted like mead.
Yes.
And then we had aquadent with our coffee.
Yes, we did.
Now, that's not really like something, that they're going to give you automatically. We have a tendency to ask questions about things, and then they will say, oh, well, you want to try this? And we're like, well, of course we do.
Of course we do.
So, never hesitate to ask questions about things, because you never know what you're going to get.
It's just fun to meet these people and to learn about them, and it's amazing. And then there, of course, is a second vineyard, and there is also a boat ride.
Yes. Now, it sounds romantic and sweet, this boat ride. And we've done it twice. The first time, it was the dead heat of August, and it was so hot. And we got on the boat, and they're not going fast enough even to make a really good breeze.
Because we should say, it's a traditional boat.
That carries the port barrels down to Gaia.
Used to.
Yeah. It's the same kind of boat.
Right. And I can't remember what it's called. It'll maybe come to me.
I have no idea.
But it's a very traditional wood boat. And one of the fascinating things about this is they would load these wooden casks onto these boats. They would sail down the river with the current to Porto and unload, and that's where it's aged. But to get back up the river, the current was so strong that they actually tied ropes to each side of the boat, and then on each bank, on the left and the right, there were oxen or whatever it was.
He just said cows.
I think he did say cows.
Cows.
Who helped to pull the boat back up. And the trip down took, what did he say?
He said like 3 days to go down.
And then going back.
30 days
It was
to come
like
back.
30 days to get back. And in the old days, of course, now they're loaded. Very unromantically, they're loaded into steel tanks, and taken down to Porto by truck now, which is, both lovely and a shame. But I loved learning about that. So you were going to talk about the boat tour a little more.
Well, the boat tour, you get on it, and it slowly takes you up the Douro River. And it's a beautiful scenic trip. It really is. You get to see, the banks of it from the river. It's a lovely little scenic tour, but that's really all it is. Now, the first time we did it in the heat of August, like I said, it was so hot. And there was no narration. No one was on the boat to tell us what we were looking at. So it was just like a boat ride. And it was so hot. So I was like, why are we on this boat? But in March...
I think I enjoyed it more than she did.
Maybe so. Because I was like, geez, this makes no sense. But in March... we got on a boat, and there were two things going on. Number one, they had a piped-in narration of what was going on.
And it wasn't hotter than hell.
Oh, it wasn't hotter. I had a cap on, as a matter of fact. I was a little chilly.
Yeah.
But they had something piped in so they could tell you what was going on.
And they did it in different languages.
And they did it in several different languages. And then our tour guide got on the boat with us. Now, the first time our tour guide didn't get on. She just kind of waited for us to come back. But our tour guide got on the boat this time, explained what we were looking at, told us stories about what we were looking at, and he bought a bottle of Vino Verde with him. And so we got to sip wine.
And he knew a remarkable amount of who lived in what house, what vineyard, that one was, and how they might compete with the one opposite on the other bank. And he really knew a lot about it.
He did. And that really made that trip worthwhile, because I was thinking, well, I'll get some great video footage of the river, if nothing else. But actually, I got less video footage, I think, because I was talking to him and drinking wine. So it really made the trip enjoyable.
It did. And usually, because you're starting from Pinhão to do these, you go up to Pinhão and then you kind of start from there on the van. You get to see a little bit of Pinhão. And this second time, we also got to go to the train station, which is historic, as is many train stations in Portugal. And it has gorgeous, it tells the story of port, basically, the growing, the harvesting, the transporting, all of that in blue and white tiles.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And it's really pretty. And again, our incredible guide took us down each scene that was in that tile and told us a story of what was going on. So it is really interesting to do that. And if you want to stay, we like Pinhão. There's some good restaurants there.
Yeah, there's very good restaurants. Yeah. It's kind of the heart of the Douro Valley, or where you want to go. They have hotels there.
Yeah, you can stay there. You could go and stay there and even rent a car and do your own tour. Again, you got to, have a designated driver to do that, but you could do it that way and travel all over the Douro Valley.
I think one of these days we might try that. We might actually go and stay in the Douro, but knowing us, we'll do one vineyard at a time, right?
Yes, because, you could, if you stayed for, 4 days, you could do a vineyard each day.
Yes.
And see a lot of the valley. That would be the advantage, is that you could go further out in the valley and really, because the valley is the Douro Valley is very long.
It's huge,
It's
too.
really covers a lot of kilometers. And so
And the Douro River goes all the way to Spain.
yes, so you could see a lot more of it if you went on your own.
And those of you that are thinking about doing this on your own, you can also take the train from Porto into Pinhal, or the other small village that I can't think of.
Yes.
But it is a rather long train ride. I want to say it's at least 2 hours. And you can also do a boat cruise if you so wanted, but that one takes like 7 hours. So
Yes.
depends on how much time you have and what you want to do. But either way, highly recommend Douro Valley tour.
Also, we should mention I'm going to call it the historic train. It's a very old train that's been refurbished. And you can actually, from Pinhal, you can take I don't know how long it is. It's like maybe a 1 hour ride one way and a 1 hour ride back, or maybe it's 2 each. I'm not sure.
That's on Saturdays.
And
They
it's
do
on
Saturday.
it's on Saturdays, and you get to see a lot of the valley that way. I would like to do that train ride. I think that would be a
We
lot
do
of
that
fun.
on our 4-day Douro trip. Because it does take a long time if you're staying in Porto to go to Douro, do all the things, and then come back.
Yeah.
That is a long
Yeah.
time.
Also, if you do it on your own, since we're on that subject, you should definitely decide on the vineyards that you want to visit and call ahead and make a reservation.
It is highly recommended that you do that.
I think there are some that you can drop into, but it's hard.
Especially in the summer months.
Yeah.
Now, we were there in March. You could probably drop in without a problem because there weren't that many people in the tasting rooms. And the tasting rooms were kind of big, especially at Croft, that bigger one. The smaller ones, they may not have as much room at the tasting rooms.
And you might get to come in and do a tasting, but not do the full-blown
not see a
tour of the
tour.
vineyards.
Yeah.
Which, is fun too. And the person who's doing the tasting is going to tell you some about the vineyard. I'm
Yeah.
sure you can ask questions and that kind of thing. But to wrap this part up, we highly recommend spending part of your time doing a Douro Valley tour. It is incredibly beautiful, and you really get a sense of how things are made there. Oh, and we should mention, by the way, that red wine, white wine, and port, all the different kinds of port, are all made from grapes there. And it's not just port, even though we keep talking about port.
Yeah, they do make table wines.
Yeah, there
different
is
wines.
red wine and white wine as well.
In most of the places that we've done tastings, we've had a tasting of port and a table wine that they have. So they want you to try everything, so you might want to buy something.
That's right. Oh, there's always a gift shop or an area to purchase the wines and other things at every vineyard.
And I will say, if you're at a smaller vineyard and you really like the wine, buy it there because you don't know if
Yes.
you're going to be able to find it somewhere else. If you're at a bigger vineyard like Croft or Ferreira or Sandeman or something like that, yeah, you're going to be able to find that kind of stuff because it's very popular. Grams, Taylors,
Yes.
all of that. But if you're at a smaller one and you really like the wine, buy the wine there because
You should.
their distribution is so much smaller and you won't be able to find it.
Right. And same for the olive oil. If you find an
Yes.
olive oil that you really like, you should go ahead and buy it. And you can have things shipped from there. We have done both. We have had these little blow up bag things that we have taken with us in suitcases and used that in a check bag and brought things back when we lived in the United States. Or you can actually, if you buy enough, they will ship things to you.
Yes.
And we have done that, and it arrived in great.
Probably better condition. We didn't worry about it breaking.
We didn't, because it was kind of on them, So, yeah. Is there anything else to say before we move on to Port Cellars?
I don't think so. Douro Valley. Do it.
Yeah. So another way to do this, and we recommend doing both.
Yes, do both.
You know, if you're in Porto, you're just there for a couple of days or even a day, which is not long enough, by the way. But if you're just there for a short amount of time, and you don't want to go up into the Douro Valley, for sure you should go to some of the port houses and do some tastings.
So the port houses are on the other side of the river from Porto proper, city center. So if you're down by the Ribeira district, that is on the riverfront on Porto side, and you can cross the Louis I Bridge and go over to Gaia.
Walking. You can walk.
Yeah, you can walk across it. You can drive across it if you want, but
yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it. You can take a Bolt or an Uber across it.
Yes, you can.
They'll drop you off right there. But you can walk across it either on the upper side or the lower side. Now, if you're going just to hang out by the port houses, just go on the lower side. It's much easier to walk across. And then you're right there, like, as soon as you cross the bridge, on your left is your first port house.
Yes.
Like, right there. They're
there.
waiting for you.
Yeah.
If you go to the upper part, you're in the upper part of Gaia, which
Yes.
is a beautiful place to watch the sunset. They have a nice little cafes up there.
Gorgeous
and restaurants.
views. Yeah.
You can take the metro that drops you off up there, but then you've got to either walk down the stairs to get to the lower part, or you can take the funicular, which is like the gondola ride, kind of all the way down to the port side.
Right.
Which, you know, if you're not afraid of heights and you like that sort of thing,
Yeah.
I say do it. We've done it once.
Uh-huh.
Beth didn't like it so much.
I would do it again if I needed to, but it was a little high for me.
It was high and windy, and that thing rocks when it's windy.
Yeah. But understand that hundreds and hundreds of people do it every day.
Every day.
And so, you know, it's not like it's dangerous. It's just I don't ride Ferris wheels either. And, you know.
No. But anyway, you get across the bridge.
There you go.
Burmeister's right there on your left. And it looks like an old tavern. And you can walk in there and you can do a tasting on the spot. They don't necessarily take reservations. I think they can do tours for you if you want to, or you can just go in and get a tasting.
And we haven't done that one yet, but we're going to do it next time we're there.
Yes. I wish we had done it this time, because I think we could have just walked in. And,
Yeah,
you know.
probably.
But we had a lot going on when we were in Porto.
We did.
If you listened to our last podcast, you would know that. Anyway, as you walked down the main riverfront street of Gaia, all the port houses are going to be on your left. They're just lined up. You got Kalin, you got Kotki, you got Sandeman, you keep on rocking. You got Espaço Porto Cruz.
Very good.
And you keep on going. There's Ferreira, Taylor's, Cockburn's is down there somewhere, Graham's, Dow's.
Oh, yes.
Dow's. But, I mean, there's more than 10 of them easily. I want to say there's 15. And if you're curious about how many, I do have on the blog in Porto and on the website, there's a freebie little sheet for you that tells you which port houses do what, like what kind of tours that they offer, what special things that they offer, prices, times, how to get in contact with them so you can make reservations.
Shelley did a lot of work on that, and it's really fabulous. So please use that.
Yeah, use it.
It's really good. And we'll have to, go back and update it as time goes on. But as of now in 2024, it is completely current.
It's current as far as I know, and as far as I know of all the houses. There might have been something small that I've missed, but I also learned while doing it that many of these port houses are owned by the same companies. So Beth went on a tour back in February when she was with Karina.
Hi, Karina.
And they did Sandeman tour, and they got a tasting there. And from what I understand, it was a great tour.
It was really good. Sandeman is, in case you're not familiar with it, their logo is a man in a very mysterious dark cape with a black hat on.
It looks like Zorro.
Yeah, and the rumor is that he was actually modeled after Zorro because it came out around the same time that the artist did it. But at any rate, our guide dressed up as Sandeman. You get to go back where they're actually aging all the port. Some of the barrels are, I wish I can remember how many thousands of liters.
I know. You get back there and see the size of those barrels, and you're just like amazed.
A story high.
Take years to drink all that.
Yeah, it's incredible. And then some of them are smaller. It all depends on what kind of port they're making, how they're aging it, what they're going to do with it. And you learn so much about port. And one of the things that I really like about port is that you have not only the ruby red, which is what most people know and think of when they think of port, but there are also white ports, there are tawny ports, there are other variations of those.
Limited vintage.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things. Now,
ports.
tawny is our favorite, which is a light red port.
We love a tawny.
Yeah, I mean, we like them all, really, but our favorite is the tawny. So you learn all about that. And in the Sandeman tour, it was basically how port is made, and here are all the barrels, and here's some history about Sandeman. And then we did the tasting. And in that case, you can sign up for different kinds of tastings and tours, and pretty much all of these. I had signed up for the one where we tasted a ruby, a white, and a tawny. It was a really good tour. And then I bought a bunch to haul back to our Airbnb. Thank you, Karina, for carrying it part of the way. It was very...
It got kind of heavy, did it?
Heavy toward the end, yes. Also, these tours are usually, they're done in whatever the language specified is, but they are available in French, Portuguese, English, sometimes German, Spanish, and some of them you sign up specifically for, say, the English tour. Some of them, if you just show up, they might let you join a tour that's happening, but you have to do it in whatever the language is that they've already decided. So for that reason, unless you are multilingual, we recommend that you go ahead and schedule this ahead of time so you can make sure it's in whatever the language is you prefer.
Yeah. If you're doing a tour. Some places don't take reservations for tastings. They want you to come in and do it, but you got to be there at least an hour before they close. I recommend, most of them opened about 10 in the morning, and I recommend you get there as early as you can, because we have done this twice. We've gone down there to do tastings and been turned away because they're booked up by then.
Yes.
And this was like mid-afternoon or so. And if that ever happens, just so you know, if you pop over to one of the restaurants right there on the big stretch and say, hey, we were looking to do a port tasting, they probably will put one together for you.
Yes, exactly.
And the cool thing about that is you won't just get like Sandeman tawnies or Sandeman ports, or you won't just get Ferreira ports or whatever port. You will get a mixture of what he has on tap or what he has lined up.
Yeah, yeah.
And we did that one time, and we said, okay, we're going to share the tasting because there were 6 ports we were going to taste.
Well, we decided that we should do the 6 port tasting.
Yeah.
You could do fewer, but we said, let's do the 6 and let's
6.
share it, because of course port is a much higher alcohol content.
Yes, it's like 20 something sometimes, or 22. It goes above 20. So we said we would share it. Well, instead of just pouring us a little bit to taste, he poured us at least half a glass. There is a picture on the blog. Needless to say, when we were done with that pour tasting, we had to go walk it off a bit.
We did, man. We needed a coffee.
Because we're not going to leave wine in a glass. We're just not.
No, not our thing.
Yeah, no. Yeah. So we
weren't driving. We should emphasize.
We did not.
Driving.
We weren't driving
yes.
anyway. So, but we did have to take a walk down the Riviera and
get some air.
Get ourselves together. Yeah. But they will do that on the fly. Cop Key also does port by the glass. So you can walk in there and do it. They don't do tours. They don't take reservations, I don't think. It's a whole kind of just bar experience. And you can get more than just ports. You can get DOC wines, which are table wines from the Douro Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Espaço Porto Cruz has a lovely restaurant in their building. They do tastings on the first floor. There's a restaurant on the third floor. And the restaurant, it's a little pricey, but it is so good.
It is. The first time we went, we were like, yeah, it's probably going to be a little touristy and a little expensive and everything. And it is a little expensive, but not more so than a lot of things down in that area.
No, not really.
And it is very, very good food.
It's good food.
Yeah.
And they give you a tasting of their white port at the beginning of the meal, so you get to taste that. And then they have others on the menu that you can taste after your meal if you want. And then they have a lovely rooftop bar.
They do. Above that, there's a rooftop bar, and you can go up there and hang out in good weather.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
great views.
Yeah, it was windy the day we went, but
yeah,
highly recommend that just to go.
Yeah. There are lots of restaurants down there. That is one of the ones that we recommend. We also went to dinner at, there's this whole complex called World of Wine, or WOW, and it's a little bit off the path of this main street that we're talking about.
Let's be real. It is up the hill.
Yeah, it's up.
It's up
if
a
you're
hill.
down there. Totally worth it, though. And in that, it's an old warehouse of some kind. I would assume it was a port house at one point in time.
Probably.
And they have made it into a complex of stores. There is a cooking school there. There are several restaurants. There's other things where you can do special events. It's a really cool complex, and it's called World of Wine, or WOW. And we went to the restaurant there that's called PIP, P-I-P.
And it was really good.
It was.
And that's all I have to say about it.
Now, again,
it was good.
It was a nice dinner with, tablecloths.
They had vegetarian food.
Yeah.
It was more, it was Italian kind of deal, because I think I had lasagna.
Yeah, it was more Italian
Yeah.
in feel, and, white tablecloths and that kind of meal. But we enjoyed that as well, and we enjoy seeing WOW, or a little bit of it anyway.
Yeah.
And then also we should mention, if you have children with you, usually if the kids are under 7 or something like that,
They're under 6.
They don't charge for those kids. And
okay, we're talking about port tours.
yeah,
Go
port
back to
tours.
port
Excuse me. I went back to port tours, and they usually, or some of them, give the kids at the end of the tour like grape juice and cookies or something while you're sampling your port wines. So that's kind of fun. So if you have kids, there are tours that are a little more geared toward having kids with you, and you can look for those. And I think you included that on your free spreadsheet that you put up on the blog.
Yeah, so you can see it on there. And many of these port houses offer something different depending on which one you go into. Even like Cockburn's has a meat and cheese tray that you can order, or you can do one with chocolates. So you don't necessarily have to do just the tasting. You can do something with food. Like Beth said, kids are accommodated.
In some of them. Yeah.
In some of them, they won't charge for the kids to come in to do the tour, and then they get, juice boxes and crackers at the end. And so, even if you are traveling with children, it's easier. Or if you're looking for a food option, just take a look at the spreadsheet or do a little research before you go, because every single one offers you something different.
Yes.
And like I said, when I started this whole conversation, a lot of these places are owned by the same companies. So if you go to one and they say, well, we can't fulfill your request, they may say, well, try our sister store here. And places like Graham's, Taylor's, and Dow's does the same sort of thing, where they have tastings where you can taste ports from all 3 of those places. You don't have to go to 3 separate places to taste the port. You can do it all in one place.
Yeah.
And that's rather convenient, I think.
Indeed.
So, highly recommend a port tour.
Yes.
Not only do you get great educational information about how port is made, and usually each one tailors it to their specific port. So you get a family history a lot of times. but you also get a great tasting and a lovely afternoon.
Yeah.
And if you just got off the plane, like Julie, it'll keep you awake for a little while.
It will. That's what we did. And the second one, or the one that we took with Julie, was at Ferreira. Yes, with that twill in it, that is correct. And I'm the one that signed up for the tour. It happens to be the only port house has been continuously owned by a Portuguese family since its inception. And because a lot of them were either started by the British or at one point owned by British. So this is the only one. It's also the only one that was owned by a woman. Ooh. I didn't even realize this when I booked it, but it happened that our tour was on International Women's Day. So that worked out lovely.
Look at us.
Yeah, you look at us. She started this port.
Who were you talking about?
Excuse me.
Donna
Antonia Ferreira.
Yeah.
Except you can roll the R.
Ferreira.
Yeah, there we go. She started this when she was a widow with 2 children, and she had to figure out how to support herself, and that's what she decided to do. I can't remember the year, but at some point there was a disease that infested all of the port or all of the vineyards that were in the Douro Valley. And everything was dying, and the port business could have just died right there. She, however, was one of the ones that went over to America and figured out a way to graft something healthy onto what was going on, and it was disease resistant, and it solved the problem. She came back and did that not only in all of her vineyards, but she shared the solution with all of her competitors, so that the port wine business is today what it is, and we really have her to thank for it.
She saved wine.
I know, well, port wine, and I just
she just saved the wine.
I thought that was a really interesting story, and so I wanted to hear more about her personally. So I picked the Donna Antonia tour from there just so we could hear more about it. But they have lots of different tours if you don't want to hear, all the history about that.
And their tours are also geared toward your understanding and knowledge of port. So if you're a beginner, you can go to the Sandeman and get, your 3 wine tastings of your white, your tawny, and your ruby. And then it moves on up. So before you know it, you could be tasting tawnies that are 10, 20, 40 years old. Mm-hmm. You could be tasting different wines in limited vintages from years past, depending on what you choose. So, we're still beginners.
Well, we know a lot more than
we
used to.
We know a lot more than we used to. I'd say we're still, though, beginners because we haven't tasted it all, but it's on our list.
Yeah, of course. That's what we always say. We haven't been everywhere, but it's on our list.
It's on our list.
And also, we have had a 20-year-old port that I brought back from a tawny, 20-year-old tawny that I brought back from Sandeman, and we toasted our 1-year anniversary in Portugal with that recently, and it is indeed different than
it is good.
The basic one. The basic ones are incredible. Don't get me wrong, but well, boy howdy, those aged ones are really special. Yeah.
So if you're in Porto, definitely go check out the port houses, but especially in the summer, try to make a reservation, try to book it ahead, because there is a chance they will get booked up quickly. And some places, like I said, won't take a reservation, so check my little spreadsheet for that. But do your research. You don't want to miss out on this. We really don't.
It's really good.
It is worth it. All right. Well, I think that's it for this episode.
I think it is.
And coming up next week, we might be talking about Évora.
Yes.
Because that blog post is also up, so we're ready to talk about Évora, which is a very cool city down in the Alentejo.
Yes.
Which is another wine country that we need to explore.
Right.
Because, that's why we're here. We're here for the why.
Yeah, it is definitely a plus.
So please let us know how we're doing. If you have any questions, hit us up on social media. Hit your subscribe button. Tell all your friends about us.
Yes.
And all the other cool things.
Sharing and liking really helps us.
Sharing is caring, folks.
It is. And it really helps us.
It does help us a lot. So keep your ears peeled for the next podcast. Check out the blog. Check out our social media. Subscribe, and we love you. Thank you.
Yes. Okay.
All right. I think it's time to go to the cafe for our Saturday evening cocktail.
I believe it is.
Even
Meet
though
some
we
friends over there.
Kind of already had one. So,
yeah.
Boa Todd.
Boa Todd.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. If you would like to reach out to us or ask questions, you can find us on our social media pages on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. You can also follow us at our website, www.forus.com. That's www.forus.com. Hope to hear from you soon. Obrigada!